Welcome to Yelling into the Void, a podcast discussing and exploring topics in World of Warcraft. I am Tevin Crody, your host, and Scott Daly, as always, is joining me today.
Hello.
Scott, I did want to ask you a quick question,
Okay.
and this might be a little bit complicated, but if you had a dot that you could apply to an enemy that stacked up to 250 times, or it stacked up to 8 times and then exploded for the rest of the damage if you reapplied it, what one would you want? Both cases, each stack of the dot deals the same amount of damage.
So wait. Just so 250 times, but it lasts forever.
It lasts forever, yeah. Every time you reapply it, it just goes back on.
Okay, or 8 times, but it explodes for, I'm assuming, like the equivalent of 240.
The remaining damage. Yeah. No, not 240. The remaining damage of the 8 dots is blown up, and then you start reapplying it again.
I don't know, man. I don't play dot classes. I'm gonna go with the 8. I'm going with the 8.
You definitely want the 250. That's why if you play Arcane Mage, you don't take your last point of your hero talent.
Wait. This is real? I thought this
is real.
This was just a bullshit thought experiment.
No, this is real. Yeah, currently Arcane Mages take a damage loss for taking their last hero talent.
This is why I don't play DPS, because I don't think like this.
Anyways, with all of that nonsense out of the way, Scott, I don't know if you know this, but it's currently pre-patch day.
I do know that because I'm not playing the video game right now.
Yeah, it got pushed back more than a little bit. It seems like that is it's kind of the trend anymore for patch days, it feels like.
Like, obviously, this is a lot to push to production, and it's going to be a 12-hour maintenance window. That's a lot.
Well, hey, I mean, it could be Final Fantasy and they just take the game down for an entire day.
Yeah, and you never know. They could finish after 2 hours and be like, sweet, I'm going home.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. Like, we've been playing this game long enough. You just expect these things. It is a little wild that it's almost 9 o'clock at night and it's still not up. It's supposed to be up in about 25 minutes from this recording, but they'll probably delay it again. Who knows?
Anyways, we have pre-patch to cover. There's some tank changes that we touched on a little bit last week. Hopefully we'll get in depth a little bit more about those. Today we got some more information about Mythic Plus. We got a new affix and a rework to the current affix. And we were also given a timeline for the beginning of the expansion. So there's not really a shortage of things for us to cover today, but I guess, Scott, if you want to, we can go ahead and maybe start off with pre-patch.
Yeah, I think when we envisioned this episode originally, we thought we were going to just do an episode on the pre-patch. And I think we very quickly realized that we haven't played the pre-patch yet because it's not up. But B, there's not a lot to talk about. I mean, I guess like comparatively to what we've been talking about the last few weeks, it's just like the things that we've been talking about that exist on beta are now live. They're good things. I'm excited about them. But as far as like, okay, what am I going to do the minute the servers come up? I'm going to fix my add-ons. That's what I'm going to do.
I know what I'm doing the second the servers come up.
What's that?
I bet you'll probably do it the same, but not really think about it. I'm going into my spellbook on a character that I don't really play, and I'm going to see if I have all of my portals from previous seasons on all of my characters.
That's true. That's true. Yeah, I mean, you have to, right? That's the warbands. Because, I mean, that's the thing. Like, the things that are coming to this pre-patch that matter are warbands and, I guess, the sky flying thing. Although that doesn't really, I mean, it's cool, but it doesn't really matter. And that's, I mean, there's class reworks and stuff, but there's not a lot of content to actually, like, do those new classes stuff in. But that's about it, right?
Yeah, I mean, we have an event coming in a week, but
We
that's not launching with the pre-patch. So outside of that, it's pretty much do Mythic Plus, do Raid, LFR, whatever you want to do, but with the new and improved classes.
Yeah. But I mean, you say new and improved, like, probably ultimately improved, but I think it's going to be this weird state where a lot of the balancing around these classes was designed with hero talents in mind, and we will not have hero talents because you don't start unlocking those until level 71. So
What do you mean? You can play Mistweaver Monk and use your Essence font tier set to help you out in the pre-patch.
I still don't understand. So yeah, this is good. They updated some of the tier sets because some of the tier set abilities became talents, and they thought, hey, this is gonna be weird if you have a thing that a tier set gives you that you can also take a talent. That's gonna be a little weird. So we need to fix that. And one of the things that they did was they updated the monk tier set to ping off of Essence font, which is a spell that they just removed from the game. So I don't get that. I don't get it. I don't know what they're doing there.
Either way, I find it a little weird. We still have tier sets. I think that's fine. Um, I almost wonder if they should have just left it as is, like they did in Shadowlands, where it's like we get the new talents, but they're not taking away covenant abilities. So
Yeah,
like
so you
some cases you just kind of get 2 charges of something or something like that.
I thought that was
Um,
fun. I think it was I had like either a 15 or a 30-second convoke, and that was a lot of fun. I enjoyed that.
yeah, I almost wonder if that's kind of the avenue they went. So the one thing that is a little bit saddening to me, I'm gonna for sure be playing Mage. I did my final bit of testing yesterday, so I think I'm for sure playing Mage in the War Within. And in pre-patch, Fire is doing like abysmal single target damage to the point where it's like, why are you even playing Fire at all? But the second you add like 2, 3, 4 targets, it just starts exploding. And then Arcane is obviously good. It got reworked, so you can't really complain about that.
Hmm.
Um, but Frost, man, Frost is like the go-to spec. Pretty
Wow.
much nothing changed about it. So their tier set works, and they've got new talents. So like in pre-patch, Frost is going to be the way to go.
Huh.
It's just really weird.
Then you have to be a Frost Mage player, and nobody likes them.
Yeah, yeah, it's like, the druid game we used to play when you didn't know what spec everyone was when they were signing up. You invite a DPS druid and inspect them and see if they're feral. Yeah, well now you invite a mage and inspect them and see if they're frost, and you just
Especially
kick
on
that
Sanguine
person
Week.
instead. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. How are you feeling? Like you're looking at prospectively playing bear.
Yeah.
What are you missing without hero talents?
I mean nothing. Like I'll just play the build that essentially was the season 4 build. Like nothing in the bear tree changed really. The class tree changed, but it got worse. And it's awful and I hate it. And every druid knows this that the class tree is dog shit. Um, but so I mean, it changed. I'll move stuff around there, but none of the gameplay will really change for bear at all. Like I can't do the lunar bear stuff yet because you need the hero talents for that. So I just won't take those abilities yet and just play bear the way it plays right now. So yeah, I mean, it's not going to be too big of a change for me. I'm gonna like dabble probably in the blood DK a little bit too because that got a rework. So even without the hero talents, that's very different in pre-patch now. Yeah, I mean, I'm excited because it's like the step before the step. It's like it's an exciting time to play World of Warcraft. Like as you mentioned, we have a bunch of stuff to talk about today because we're starting to really ramp up to the expansion. So like there was a lull there where there really wasn't that much going on, and then now all of a sudden it's going to be probably daily pieces of news coming out that are exciting and sometimes concerning. I like okay. I feel like we're going to be negative in this week's episode about a lot of things. And I just want to say here, near the beginning of the episode, that I really like this game a whole lot. I think this is a really great game. It's one of the best games I've ever played. But there's some choices that were made um, in everything around some of the stuff that's happening with the War Within that I find pretty confusing, and I'm gonna air my frustration about them. But I do really love this game. I just want to, let's just be clear about that.
Yeah, I definitely think a lot of the frustration that we have is coming from the fact that at least as of right now, neither one of us are Mythic rating.
Yeah,
And Mythic Plus seems to be, I don't know, in this weird state of like Blizzard really wants to support this as like an end game pillar, but also they don't want it to feel like it's replacing or required for Mythic rating kind of thing.
yeah,
Um, so if you're not Mythic rating, you're kind of in this weird spot of like you almost got punished a little bit recently, but we can
yeah,
talk about that a little bit later.
yeah.
But I think that's where a lot of our frustration's stemming from.
Yes, 100%. My other frustration is with this fucking pre-patch event, Tevin. I'm mad at
All
it.
right, all right.
Okay, let me just get on my soapbox here for a minute. So the event is not out. I have not played the event, so please take everything I'm about to say here with a hefty grain of salt. But essentially, what the pre-patch event is every 30 minutes, memories of Azeroth spawn somewhere in the world, and you take a portal from Dalaran and you go to where the memories are, and you and a bunch of other people fight a bunch of bad guys until a bar fills up, and then a really powerful bad guy spawns, and then you all fight that guy, and then you collect currency, and then you go to a vendor and you turn currency in. And this has been the event for every single pre-patch forever, and it's boring and stupid, and I don't know why we keep doing this. It's so boring. I hate it. Like, I want to get hyped for the expansion. I want cool things to happen, but this feels like such a, oh, and then yeah, we'll do the thing where there's things, and they'll fight the things, and they'll get gear, and then yeah, we're done. It's just like, man, what?
Yeah, this pre-patch event to me also doesn't really feel like, like going into the War Within and playing on beta, like you see Xal'atath showing up and doing all of this stuff, and it's
Mhm.
like, I don't know, the pre-patch doesn't really scream like anything to do with Xal'atath
No, you get
or
to fight
anything.
the Lich King again. Only this time he's blue.
Yeah, but we just did that in Classic.
but he's blue.
Yeah, I don't know. I have to play it before I really make any sort of judgment. But yeah, I have a feeling that I'm probably not going to engage with the pre-patch event too much.
No, and I mean, I
I
don't particularly need the gear, so it's not really for me, I guess you could say. But like, okay, let's think about a minute. Just to like this, we want people to get the pre-patch event is to get people hyped up for the new expansion and to maybe highlight story of what the new expansion is going to be, setting, and perhaps arguably features, right? You know what would be a cool thing to do? What if the pre-patch event was a delve? Not one of the delves that are in the new zone, but they made like a pre-patch delve. And
Mhm.
you and some of your friends, or you by yourself, got to like do this cool story-driven pre-patch delve. And that way you're showing off the new features of the expansion, you're getting people hyped up. Like, it just, if I could think of that, certainly people whose job it is is to think of that. And the honest truth is, like, that takes development time, right? That's a lot of work.
Yeah,
It's probably not easy to make a delve, so they did the thing that's very easy to do, which is let's take old mobs, tint their color differently, and we'll throw them into the open world where people will just zerg them, and it'll be boring and stupid. But I don't know, like, I do feel like in Kata, they didn't even do the pre-patch event for Kata because they, they were just like, nobody liked this. It was boring. We're just gonna skip
yeah.
it.
I almost wonder though, like you bring up a really good point of like do a delve. Like what happens? All right, let's say instead of coming up with a brand new delve, we just go into a Ruby Life Pools that's stripped of all of its mobs, but we're with either our friends or we're solo, and we're going through like it's a delve. It has
Mhm.
its own mobs in there now.
Yeah.
And so they don't necessarily really have to redo anything, maybe some voice lines or something like that, but
Yeah.
maybe just kind of like reusing some of those assets.
Well, and they sort of did this with Dragonflight, right? Because I think the Uldaman revamp dungeon was available during that pre-patch, right? It was a level 70 version, or 60 version, I'm pretty sure, but it was available, and that is kind of like the intro quest to Dragonflight. It's like they go there to find out how to unlock the secrets of getting their power back, and that leads yada yada yada. That's sort of the same thing, and so maybe arguably you could do that here too, where instead of having to spend resources just to make a delve that's going to go away after the pre-patch event is done, just tie that delve into whatever the season 1 delve list is going to be, just like Uldaman
Mhm.
was tied into what the was one of the 8 dungeons for Dragonflight. um I mean, I don't know, that just seems like something that would be more fun and like gets people hyped up about the features instead of just like I'm saying this as a person who thinks generally that the open world content in this game is boring and bad. And there's a lot of people that play that stuff, so maybe I'm just completely off base here, right? Maybe like we have listeners out there. It's like, no, I love super blooms. The super bloom is my favorite activity of the week. And so the idea of like going through these portals and finding Arthas and Onyxia and killing them again for like the 7th time is fun, and they're gonna enjoy that. I don't know. I don't think so. Like we do these open world events with every patch, and it's just like you can't ever make it fun. Like the world bosses, they just fall over. There's not really any mechanics. I mean, there's some mechanics, but they can't be too harsh, because then I don't know, man. It's just boring to me.
Yeah, yeah. I definitely agree with you. I don't think that they're going about this the right way. But that being said, luckily I think it's just catch up gear, maybe
Yeah.
like a toy or something. So we really don't have to interact with it if we don't want to, right?
Yeah. There's nothing that like you look at there and go, oh my god, I can't believe I have to play Plunderstorm for 10 hours.
Speaking of, like, Plunderstorm season 2 would have went real hard this last like
Yeah.
month.
Yeah. Surprise, surprise, War Within Plunderstorm. New map.
Would have been amazing. Anyways, since there isn't really much more to talk about with the pre-patch, we might have a little bit to talk about next week after we get to interact with it. I don't know, but I guess we can move on to some of the new Mythic Plus stuff that we've been seeing this week.
Oh boy.
First things first, we've got a new affix. So now we have 3, which, like we've been saying, we at least need an odd number to make sure that we can have these affixes with a tyrannical or with fortified as the first affix every time. So are we going to stop here? Are we going to 5? Are we going to go to 4 and maybe make it a little weird and you double up with something back to back? I don't know. But anyways, the new affix, Scott, it's I feel like you cooked this one up and just submitted it to Blizzard. I don't know.
No, no, the one I cooked up had something to do with tentacles. I don't even remember what it was. But the one that this one is what I thought the first one was,
Yeah, yeah.
which name I'm blanking on right now. The one where the bunch of orbs, but the Razageth orbs, essentially.
Mhm.
That when it was described in just reading the patch notes, it seemed like orbs were going to fall from the sky. I thought they were going to move towards the enemy, and you intercept them and stop them, and that's how you get the buff. That's what I thought that affix was. It wasn't. It was just use a CC or stun, and it'll break their cast. This is that, though. This is exactly that. As orbs are going to spawn, they're going to leash to an enemy, and they're going to start moving slowly toward the enemy. And if you step into them, you get the buff instead of the enemy, which I like it. It's cool. I like it a lot.
Yeah, I just went to look it up, and these names I'm not very good with. I'm assuming I think Ascendant is the one that spawns the ads that you have to CC, and then Voidbound is the one that you have to kill the ad.
Yes,
Yes,
Voidbound. Yes, Voidbound is the kill the ad. I'm going to take your word on the
Ascendant.
Ascendant one. I don't
Yes,
remember.
Ascendant is the other one. So this is where I'm bad though, because I don't remember the name of the new affix, but
It's
man,
called
is it cool!
it's called Oblivion.
Oblivion. Okay.
Yeah.
So the other thing is, with this change came, or with this addition came a couple changes. So the first thing being, the Ascendant one, so the one with all of the ads that you have to CC or kick or whatever, nothing really is changing with that one after their change that they made last week, right?
Yeah. I think it's in a really good
Voidbound.
place right now. I think we played a lot of keys last week in beta, and 10 feels like the right number for these. It feels manageable and not frustrating.
Yes. But with Voidbound, you're getting an additional buff with that now.
Yeah.
Like, it isn't just crit. Now you're getting crit and CDR.
Great idea. Great idea. CDR is fun. It's immediately noticeable. You can feel it. You watch as suddenly your cooldowns are coming up quicker. It's great idea. I love it.
I'm going to just play survival again. Throw bombs all the time.
That's not the only thing they changed with this one, though, right? They changed quite a few things with Voidbound.
Yeah. I think you're happy about the other one, being a tank player.
Yeah, so one of the big problems we saw almost immediately, like the second you play this thing, you realize, oh, this is really annoying when it spawns. If you're on a fight that requires movement, like if you're on, there are some fights in these dungeons that you kind of have to kite the boss a little bit. It's part of the script of the boss. If the thing spawns like in the middle of the poop or away from where you had to kite the boss, it's just super, super annoying because it doesn't matter if it's really far away from the boss. When the cast goes off, it's still going to buff the boss's damage. And it became really, really annoying really fast. So the change was the thing will now just follow the tank. It will spawn wherever it spawns, but it will follow the tank around, which is a great change. Great, great change. I love it. It completely solves that problem.
The other part of this, a brand new example, hot off the presses yesterday. I was doing keys with a couple of our other friends and guild members. So on Siege of Borealis, the first boss, you have ads all over the place and you have to kite the boss through these like bombs. Well, our healer was having to kite the boss and we were killing ads that were on the tank. And the emissary spawned on the healer in the corner of the boss room. Nobody had any idea that it had spawned. And then I just out of nowhere see this like black line. And I'm like, what is that? That's weird. And I look over and the emissary's just there like half done with its cast.
Yeah.
So ideally that's not going to happen anymore. So you'll always be able to see the thing when it shows up.
Yeah. They've also made it no longer scale with Fort, which is a good call. It shouldn't scale with Fortified.
What do you think about the buff change?
The CDR or how it buffs the boss?
No, the like 2 seconds for 5% rather than 3 seconds for 10% on the ads.
I think that's good generally because I think the max it can get up to is 25% added damage. I think the cast goes off 5 times before, or the buff applies 5 times before the cast finishes and it disappears. So that's good because 50% was a lot if you mess this thing up. I do think it's a little weird because especially you got to think like I guess not high keys because this won't be in high keys, but like if we're talking 10s and 11s, a tyrannical boss hurts really, really bad. And it applies, I think, the first stack of the buff, the second it spawns, and then it'll apply it 2 seconds after that. And it strikes me as interesting that you could be playing the affix perfectly correctly in that everyone switches to the affix the second it spawns, but it's still going to take 3-4 seconds for the thing to die. The boss gets a stack of 10 or 15% extra damage, it goes into their scripted heavy AoE damage fight, and now suddenly they're doing 10%, 20% more damage. And you didn't technically do anything wrong. You played the affix exactly as you're supposed to. It's just the lineup wasn't great, and that doesn't feel great to me. I mean, it definitely feels better with the change now. But I could definitely see this as like having a bad overlap with either a single target, very, very hard hitting thing, or a just AoE. Like I'm just thinking of like, I mean, the freaking third boss in Halls of Infusion. Like, can you imagine that boss with a 20% damage buff, even for just a few seconds? Like, that's rough. That's rough.
Yeah, I don't know. It is, but like you said, at least we don't have to worry about it past a 12, right?
True. Yeah, I mean, that's the thing is like we talk about, I caught myself because I was always like, oh, this is going to scale out of control. And then I was like, oh, wait, no, it won't, because it's just going to be gone before it does that.
Yeah. So I think that's like a good catch-all because, I mean, this is going to suck. Like, especially when you get to the 10, 11, what 10, 11
Yeah, 10,
range.
11. Yeah.
It's gonna really not be fun. And I mean, now that we're being forced essentially to do tens every week, for gear, which I mean we were doing before anyways,
Yeah.
but like
Yeah.
that's gonna start not being great for pug groups. But I
Yeah.
think that the fact that it goes away once you get to a 12 is huge.
Yeah.
Because like an 11 amount of damage, a previous 21 is like, if you're playing your tank correctly, you're probably not dying in a 21 like
Yeah.
at all.
Yeah.
And people are surviving with cooldowns up until 30s in
Yeah.
AoE damage. So I don't think that it's going to scale to the point where it's just going to completely wipe groups that are expecting it. But I do fear for the pug groups that just aren't expecting this on like, because the way that it lines up is it spawns, I think, every minute or something like
Something
that,
like that.
maybe.
Yeah.
And if this lines up to the point where like you're going slower or faster than you're used to, and now it's lining up with a boss mechanic that you're not used to it lining up with, I mean, I could easily see this taking a group out.
Yeah. I think it's essentially like going to negate a personal cooldown, right? Like this is
Yeah.
the damage it'll do. If you allow it to fully buff the boss, it will basically be the equivalent of having to use a personal. And so like that's not a huge deal in that it would basically mandate that, oh, if the boss has this buff and a big AoE thing is about to happen, you have to use your personals on this one. Like you maybe could have gotten away
Mhm.
with saving it for a different thing, but you have to use it. So a coordinated team with people that know that and know how to use their personals reactively, it'll be fine. But yeah, I mean, it's gonna. I think of the three that we've seen, and again, I haven't played the new Oblivion one, so I don't know how many of those crystals there are. I don't know how quickly they move towards the enemy. I don't know
Hopefully
how
only
difficult.
5.
Hopefully, yeah. I don't know any of that, but uh, definitely of these three, this is the hardest one, and the most
Yeah.
punishing one, I think.
I definitely also think that the other change. So there's quite a bit of changes with this affix. So there is one final change with this where if the cast finishes, it persists for a
Yeah,
while.
yeah. It used to
Where
be that if you let
previously
it,
it just went away.
yeah, if you let the cast go off, it just dropped the buff entirely.
Hmm.
Now it double punishes you. It's like you not only have you been having this buff stack slowly over the last few seconds, but now it's going to stick around for a little while too. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
rough. It's rough.
So I don't know. And like the thing is too, like I was noticing this on beta when I was testing out some other classes. Uh it only has 1 health, right? But it has a giant shield. So
Yeah.
like execute classes can use their executes on this.
Mm.
Um I didn't try on warrior. This is one thing I should have tried when I was trying a warrior. I don't know how shattering throw interacts with the shield on this.
I
Uh
would hope because like when it first came out, you could definitely just like
spell steal it.
purge and spell steal. Like you could do a
Yeah.
bunch of stuff to the shield and just kill a thing immediately. And I think they fixed all that right away. I mean, I is the philosophical design to make it have 1 health and a shield just so you could use those executes and like touch of death and shadow word death and all, like is that why? Like why do it this way if not for that?
I I would hope so, but it also lends you to being able to kill it quicker. So
Yeah.
I'm hopeful that that's why. But if not, I mean, if we go into live, right, and it's like this, and we get geared, I mean, we're in the key levels that we were doing in a 2, where we're scaled 2, 3, 4, where we're scaled to like 580. Um, it seemed like it took a little bit to kill the ad. Like you
It
were saying,
did.
at least like 4 to 6 seconds.
Yeah, it got a few
Um,
stacks off, and you felt it. Like you felt the boss's extra damage. I think if it was on
when
a
you
boss.
have more gear in an insanely bursty class, like let's say a Ret Paladin,
Yeah,
I could see this thing dying in like a Wake of Ashes rotation.
yeah, especially because they took it off of scaling with Fort, right?
Yeah.
I think you're absolutely right that this is only going to feel like a problem early in the season,
Yeah.
and it's just gonna be quickly become a thing that you have to deal with, but isn't that big of a deal. And gets
Hmm.
you a cool buff, which is like once again, like, I know they were so resistant to this for so long, but like just the idea that you get a benefit from it, that's not just the benefit isn't just, oh, now I don't have to deal with that affix anymore, it's also I get a cool thing. Like, I'm just imagining like how much less annoyed at explosives I would have been if also every time I popped an explosive I got like a little damage buff or something like that, just something that like that rewards you beyond just, okay, you have solved the affix puzzle. um I think it's really cool. Like, this kiss curse thing is cool, and we talked about how 20% crit was, really useful for some classes, but also kind of boring. You
Hmm.
wouldn't necessarily notice it as much. And what did they do? They added CDR to it, which is awesome, awesome.
Dude, Fire Mage is gonna pop the fuck off when
Yeah,
this
it's
thing
gonna be
goes off.
great.
Like,
It's gonna be great. How did?
so one thing we don't actually have down that I wanted to ask you about because I just thought about it. One of the keys that we did last week was oh, what's it called? The Threads dungeon.
City of Threads, I think it was.
Yeah, City of Threads. Um, we've been seeing this as kind of like a thing that they've been doing in a lot of their newer dungeons recently, where you have this like RP section. Um, and I don't know that this really has a place in Mythic Plus.
Yeah, it's incredibly frustrating. So for those that don't know, there's a section of this dungeon where you have to kind of run around the city. It's kind of similar to what is the name of the other city we went to where we had to do
Tazavesh?
stupid RP things? No, I mean, yes, it does look like Tazavesh, but that's not the one I'm talking about. The one that was in season 1 of Dragonflight. Why can't I remember the name of it? This is really frustrating me.
Season 1 of Dragonflight. Was it an old dungeon?
Yeah, it was a Legion dungeon.
Oh, Quarter Stars?
There we go. That's the one. So basically, in the City of Threads or whatever it's called, I'm feeling doubtful that it's actually called City of Threads.
I'll fact check you, don't worry. It looks like City
It
of
is.
Threads.
Yeah, I
Wow.
was right.
Yes.
Hell yeah. So you have to basically find 4 spies, and I think it's technically 3 spies because I think the game teaches you about the mechanic by putting one of the 4 spies like right in front of you when you start that section of the dungeon. So you have to run around and find 3 spies, and the way you find 3 spies is you like detect their pheromone trail. So you see like a glowy, transparent version of them that like is basically like a footprint trail. And then you have to run up to them, find them, defeat them, and then go on to the next one. And it just results in you kind of just like wandering around the dungeon, waiting until you find the pheromone trail. And like, I don't know, I think it's a little bit better now, but there at some point you couldn't tell like which direction the mob was facing, and so like you could just run to the wrong end of the trail.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's just this kind of thing where like in it, it's a cool idea for a dungeon. Like, it is a cool idea for a dungeon. It's a cool thing to do in a dungeon. But as soon as you add a timer to the dungeon, it starts to go like, well, what are we doing here? Like, it just seems that we're just wasting time. And of course, like, the argument is like, well, yeah, what they'll do is they'll just adjust the time for that. Like, they'll give you more time on this dungeon than they would have had this RP section not existed, which is true. But psychologically, that doesn't really do anything for you, because what it feels like is you're just sitting there watching your timer tick down and there's nothing you can do about it. Because after you find all 4 of the spies, then you have to go find the dude, and then he has to slowly walk you toward the next area of the city that you're going to go to. And then he has to get like trapped and killed by the second boss. And it's just like you're just kind of going insane waiting for all this stuff to happen. Like,
It
sorry, go
it
ahead.
also feels weird for the Mythic Plus version, I think,
Yeah,
because like in this dungeon you load in and you are just surrounded by enemies.
yeah,
And then you go and you kill a bunch of things. You fight the first boss, and then it's like, hold up, pause. No more fighting. You're going to fight one mob every couple minutes, and
yeah.
then you're going to go fight the boss, and then you're going to go back to fighting these huge packs
Hmm.
of just random shit. And not to mention, like, after this whole interaction, you do a boss, and then you go to this wide open area where you go up into this, I don't know, like ziggurat thing or whatever, a building, and all of the trash along that path to the next boss is like no count.
Oh, it's
So like
awful.
we're going to be front loading all of our count. So all of our fighting is going to happen. Then you're going to do the first boss, and then you're going to do essentially nothing until you fight another boss, and then you're going to do a bunch of trash that doesn't matter until you fight another boss, and then another boss after that. So it almost feels like this entire dungeon happens before this RP event, and then it just comes to this like grinding halt
Yeah.
afterwards. At least that's been my experience playing with it.
Yeah, and it's interesting how many of the dungeons do stuff like this, because I know we've never done the Dawnbreaker dungeon because of the horrible buggy nature of which some classes on the ship deal with it. But there's a section in that dungeon where you have to kill 3 mini bosses before killing a boss, and you have to fly around to the different points, and all the mini bosses are in houses, and so you have to like pull the trash around them and get in there. It's not as bad, but it reminds me of like Nokud, which was this like really fun concept of a dungeon. This completely open dungeon. It exists in the entire zone. I remember how much they advertised this dungeon going into Dragonflight. It's like the dungeon is the whole zone, and you get to dragon ride. It's like that sounds awesome, except every single boss encounter in that has a set number of mobs you have to kill before you can spawn the boss. And it's like it's completely dictating what your route is. It's not really open. You have to kill all these packs, and then you just grab a few on the side. And that
Mhm.
like it's interesting. Again, I think these are things that make sense when you're designing a dungeon for like just the player experience as a normal dungeon or a heroic dungeon or even a Mythic Zero dungeon. But the second you start talking about things like required count and time, and one of the most fun things in Mythic Plus, which is the fact that you get to kind of design your own route and come up with better routes and better strategies for how to get through the thing faster. And then you put these artificial things in the way of that. It just seems frustrating. And
Yeah.
I'm not saying that I want them that every dungeon has to be designed with Mythic Plus in mind, because I do think that would take a little of the flavor and fun away from some of these dungeons. But it does strike me that like we keep running into this problem. Like honestly, the mega dungeon in Dragonflight, I I really enjoyed that dungeon the first time I played it. I thought that was a lot of fun. I thought the story stuff was compelling. The fights were fun. It was cool to look at. It was this fun little lengthy adventure you go on. But then like the second you do it with a timer, all those fun little quirks of the dungeon are just like, come on, man, this is stupid. This stupid
Yeah.
gauntlet I have to speed through. That's dumb. And like, I don't want them to take away that stuff, but at the same time, it's just like, you're in a different frame of mind when you're doing a key. You just are.
I definitely think that a lot of the RP stuff, I mean, they cut back on like sitting and waiting for dialogue in some dungeons
Yeah.
recently.
Yeah.
So maybe they'll do something for some of these RP events in the future because yeah, like you, like going through this in a heroic or whatever, like I'm going to enjoy and savor that. But
Yeah.
it's just in a Mythic Plus where it's like, man, I really wish we didn't have to do this right now. Uh like I don't even know what they would do with Threads of Fate. Like maybe they just make the mobs visible and on your mini map or something like that, so you can just run to them and kill them.
I mean, the most boring thing is that they just appear in the same place every time. So you just
That's true.
eventually
Yeah,
know exactly where they are. Um,
yeah.
which
I, don't-
maybe look, we've only done the key like 2 times, so
I
maybe
mean
they are
that
in the
is
same
it is
place every time, and I just haven't realized it yet. So I don't know.
well.
Um,
Anyways, that was kind of just a thing that I was thinking about when we were talking about these Mythic Plus changes. So I guess the next thing I want to ask about is the new Mythic Plus gearing stuff. So we have a group chat for our 5-man, and a video was posted by Tettles today, and one of our 5-man players linked it to us. And all it is it's a 3-minute video explaining how we are essentially going backwards to almost like Shadowland levels of gear difference when we had made strides in Dragonflight.
yeah,
Um, so I don't know. I don't know. I feel really weird about this.
yeah,
I feel weird that we are now being required to do a 10 again. Obviously, that's okay for you and I. We strive to do that anyways. But, you know, we're going from having to only do an 8 or an 18 to now we're needing to do a 10 to get the highest level upgrade track. We're going from only needing to do 6s to get our highest level crest to now we need to do a 9. And we're going from only needing 4 upgrades on that highest level piece to now we need 6. And we can only ever get it to drop at level 1. Like, it just feels like we're going backwards a little
Yeah.
bit on this. I don't know. I don't know what part of that you want to dissect first. Feel free to take it in whatever direction you want. But yeah, it just, the gearing system upgrade seems almost like a downgrade.
Yeah, it is. There's a part of me that isn't surprised by this. Like, I feel like since they introduced the gearing upgrade system in season 2, it was very, very obvious it was far too fast in that season, and they've kind of slowly reined it in and made it take longer and longer. So I guess I shouldn't be surprised here that they've essentially made it take longer by adding an additional 2 tiers to the myth track. You are slowing down gear progression for people. But yeah, it does have the other added side effect of the advantages we Mythic Plus players made in the last expansion of not being at parity with Mythic Raiders, but closer than we've ever been. I think it was what, like 6 item levels,
Yeah, 6
something
item
around
level.
there.
Yeah.
Really, really close, but still not as good. That felt good, and it felt right.
Mhm.
And now, yeah, essentially we've gone exactly back to what it was in Shadowlands, which is, I think it's like 10 or higher difference, 10 or 11 or somewhere around there.
13.
13. Wow. God,
Yeah.
that's a lot of item level. That's a lot.
Yeah.
And yeah, we have the only method we have of getting mythic track gear is through the vault. So you're rolling the RNG dice each. Not only can you only guarantee get 1 piece per week, which I guess, in Mythic Raid you don't even get that guarantee. You might not necessarily get any pieces at all, but
But
you
you get a
are.
mythic vault at the end of raid, so you are guaranteed
No,
1
you're
piece
right.
a week.
No, you're absolutely right. You are correct. Yeah, so it's just worse. It's just worse, and you're relying on luck. So in half of those, you might not even get a piece that's useful for you or you can use or any of that stuff. So it is frustrating. I mean, ultimately, like most people that play this game, that's not going to matter. Like they're going to be happy getting the best possible gear they can get. But it does make it like it does to me feel like they are desperate for people to raid still. Like I
Yeah.
wonder if in meetings there is this sentiment that if we take away gear progression from Mythic, no one will do Mythic anymore. And that's not entirely true. I think there will still be some people that will do Mythic. Like there's people that do Ultimates in Final Fantasy that don't give any gear because they like the challenge. I think there will be those people that will always do that. But WoW is a very different game, and I think the rating scene would dry up very, very quickly.
Yeah.
Which I don't want that to happen. I want the rating scene to be healthy, but I think the way to do that is to not make other things worse, so you feel like you have to do that, but make that more friendly and open and flexible. Um, and that's not the route we're going here. So yeah,
The biggest thing for me is we have, so like ultimately in the War Within, this should not be affecting you and I because we are going to want to be doing Mythic Raid.
yeah,
We're going to be doing Mythic Plus.
yeah,
So like ultimately this shouldn't really be that big of a deal for us. But if you are somebody who only wants to do Mythic Plus, like this is a pretty big kick in the nuts. Like
yeah,
this is rough, you know? Like
yeah.
you are almost going to be forced to raid if you're going to be pushing keys because you're going to be holding people back if you don't.
Yeah, and
Um,
those
I-
people already exist in a world in which their best trinkets are 99% of the time in raid anyway, so they already
that's
feel
true.
like they have to raid to get the best trinkets they need. But yeah, then you have this on top of it that you have a much, much, much larger eye level disparity. Um, I don't like it. I don't like it. I don't think it's good for the game overall.
Yeah.
I mean, and they've just created this system where at 12 the Mythic Plus system changes, right? At 12,
Mhm.
we move away from the weekly rotating system into a high key system now. Wouldn't it make sense now that we've created this new system and this new dividing line to change the reward structure in that dividing line system? Would that not make sense? I think it
Yeah,
would.
yeah. I definitely think it would too. So ultimately, I guess my takeaway from this is just why? Like, I feel like it was fairly healthy in Dragonflight. I mean, albeit like the gear progression was a little quick, but they've also reined that in kind of twofold here because crafted gear in Dragonflight was like usable endgame gear, and it's not going to be in the War Within. Like, the item level is way lower
Yeah.
compared to what it was in Dragonflight.
It was 3 levels lower in Dragonflight, right? I think it
Yeah.
525 is the current crafted gear, and 528 is the current 4 out of 4 mythic track gear. So yeah, it was 3 item levels. So yeah, you would do the thing where the crafted gear you would get if you were a mythic raider was like belt and bracers, because those are the lowest budget item things. So
Mhm.
you would kind of hide your lower item level stuff on the lower budget things. Uh, Now it's going to be what? With 2 more mythic levels, it'll be 9, right? It'll be 10 item levels lower, the
It
crafted gear.
not usable in
Yeah,
place of a myth gear
essentially.
item.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think I haven't been paying much attention to it, but I'm pretty sure the whole, um, crafted, what are they called? The fun bonus.
Embellishments?
Yeah. The embellishments. I think they've nerfed them again.
Yeah,
uh,
they are essentially non-existent at
Yeah.
this point, yeah.
So they've kind of they created this new crafting system, and they made crafting gear relevant and in a place where it felt good to get crafting gear, because you were actually contributing to your overall item level growth. And they've kind of killed it. Crafting gear is just going to become a stopgap
Mhm.
until you eventually replace the thing. And maybe that's what they want. I didn't think that's what they want. I thought that they were pushing this system and making it so like you have to really invest time and money into being able to craft the stuff at the top level. And so you're rewarded by, getting to sell that to people and make money off of it. And because people want it. And now it's just a stopgap, which is what crafted gear has kind of always been in this game, is just a stopgap until you get better stuff. And I don't get it. I don't get it.
Yeah, well, at least we're not going back to crafted legendaries.
I guess the only thing I will say is it did, and I think this was especially true in mostly season 2, but probably season 3 as well. It did feel a little bit weird that by the end of the season, if you're not a mythic raider, a lot of your gear is just crafted stuff. Like you get your 4
Yeah.
tier pieces, and then kind of everything else is crafted. And that did feel a little strange. So I kind of understand the need to rein that in a little bit. But I don't think this is the right way.
Yeah, I don't know, it definitely feels weird. I think the other issue I take with this is we're getting this new warband system, but we're not able to trade the Voidstone or Crest currencies between our warband. So requiring a 9 to get your highest crests now is, I mean, it's not killing alts, but like it's pretty effectively killing alts for a lot of people. Like we have this system that's making alt life better, and then we're just taking a big old dump on it by saying, okay, well, now go do your 9 for your crests, and not just like 1 9, because crests don't come quick, so you're having to do a lot of +9 keys.
Yeah. I think now on Twitter added this up, but if you're a mythic raider wanting to upgrade all, and this is this is not just a problem for us normies, this is a problem for everyone. This is a problem for everyone that plays this game, because if you are a mythic raider wanting to upgrade your gear to the end of the 6 out of 6 myth track, it will take 1050 crests to do that. It will also take an additional 120 crests, assuming you want 2 crafted items, which maybe you won't, based on the crafted item stuff. At 12 crests a run, that's an insane number. That's absolutely insane. That's
Yeah.
100. That's 100 essentially Mythic Plus runs if you time them all. Don't forget that this incredibly painful penalty of only 5 crests for a depleted key. That's
Why
insane.
couldn't it be 6? At least be a multiple 12.
You know what it should be? It should be you get the
12?
same amount whether you deplete it or not, because you want to encourage your players to push themselves against their limits of difficult content. Like any system that encourages a player to take it easy on themselves because they will get better rewards if they do that is a bad system. It's stupid. It
Yeah.
should award the full amount.
Yeah. I don't know. This whole thing is, I think the most infuriating part of it is this isn't going to matter for your main
No.
because you're going to play your main so much. But you're going to play your main so much that you have such a huge stockpile of these things and you're not going to be able to trade them to your alts. Like, I hate the like conversion tax that they do, but like I would rather have that than not be able to do it at all. Like the reason so let me explain. The reason I hate this conversion tax is because you still played the game.
Yeah.
It's not like you're buying these from a different player, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
You still played the game to get all this stuff. Why is it being like, why can I trade gold? Or, what's the best recent example of like being able to trade down? Is it the Shadowlands garbage that you could buy for Torghast?
Yeah.
Uh,
I hated
anyways,
that
you
shit.
get the Ash from Torghast and you get it at your full value. But if you want to trade that to your alts, you spend 1,000 to trade 750, and it's just like, why am I getting penalized for this? I
It's
did the
mine. Yeah.
content.
Yeah. Um, yeah, I mean, I think there are two big problems with this: that the crests are not tradable, and that the crests they're you need so many of them. I, it seems like I think you've said this before. There is a solution kind of built into the system they've created here. There are item level breakpoints that you get achievements that when you get that achievement, you no longer need the crests at that level because you've upgraded every piece of your gear beyond that crest. And so the game acknowledges that you no longer need those crests. And what it allows you to do is up convert them at a ridiculous penalty, but you can up convert them. Why at
Mhm.
that point can you not also trade them to someone else in your warband? Like,
Yeah.
the game
I-
is acknowledging that you do not need them anymore, so give them to your alt. And I think the other thing that you should do is every time you hit one of those breakpoints on your main, the number of crests that you get from a dungeon or a boss should go up substantially, because the game has now just acknowledged that you don't need this anymore. The only reason you would acquire this is for another character. And by the way, that should be warband wide. Like, it goes up for every single one of your warband characters. Because yeah, it is like, this game is one of the mission statements of the whole warband process is, we understand that this game is more about the player and less about the character now. People that play this game are not tied to one character. They don't hang out on one character. They have a suite of characters that they go through and change, and they've made the game better serve that player than ever before, except in this one instance where I am expected to boot up a new alt and run 100 dungeons,
yeah.
100 dungeons on my alt
It's also,
before I can start push. Like, if I want to push on my alt, this is stuff I have to do before I can really start to go, all right, let's do some 12s. Like, it's insane. It's absolutely insane. It's too much. It's way too much.
it also kills it kind of for me. I mean, as somebody who like is a serial re-roller when it comes to different seasons and everything, it's like I'm almost scared to do that now. Like, I can't get to the end of the season and be like, okay, now I want to gear like 4 different characters. I'll throw all of my crafted gear at it. Well, the crafted gear is lower. Okay, well, I guess I'll go farm my crests. Okay, well, I can't do that in a 6 anymore, so I actually have to go and legitimately do content, and that sucks. On a low geared tune, so I don't know, man. It's definitely not ideal for me. Like the +9 for crests and not being able to trade them between warbrands almost makes me more upset than the whole thing that we talked about initially, where like we're going to be forced to raid.
Oh,
Just for me
100%.
personally.
No, I agree with you. This is much more annoying because like, again, I am okay philosophically with people that kill mythic bosses getting better gear than me. I'm
Mhm.
fine with that. I think that's completely fair. You are like, I think a mythic Farak fight is harder than any key I've ever done. Certainly, I will freely admit that. Not that I'm saying keys are easy. They're not. The higher the key goes, they get very, very, very difficult. But that Farak fight is hard. And it's not just hard individually, it's hard as a group of 20 people. That's really hard. And people that manage to do that should get the best awards in the game. Like, they should get the best stuff. I am completely fine with that. But yeah, this is just like, I like playing alts. I like in Dragonflight, I enjoyed having like a team of healers I could hop between, because sometimes, when you're doing the same rotation, it gets a little stale. You need to liven things up, freshen things up. It's fun to try another healer. It's fun. I think it makes you a better player too when you can see the strengths and weaknesses of the different classes, both within different roles and also within your same role. It's like this is a really, really easy fight for me as a resto druid. I play it on a mystery hero and I'm like, holy shit, this is the hardest thing ever. And I've learned more about the fight in doing that. So yeah, I want, I don't get a lot of time to play this game. And I feel like the way it is right now, I have the bandwidth to run my main and maybe one alt, maybe.
Yeah, I
And
was
that's not
gonna
how I
say,
played Dragonflight, and I don't want to play that way.
are you gonna carry on your getting hero on every single tune of your role
No,
thing?
no, it's not going to happen. There's no way. There's no way.
Yeah, that I don't know. I think we've talked through our frustrations on this quite a bit. The next thing that I wanted to talk about, we chatted about it a little bit last week. These tank changes that came in. I think on paper, you and I took these at kind of like face value, and we're pretty shocked about their philosophy here. I don't know. You tank more than I do, but in playing with them in practice, and again, only doing like 2, 3, 4 keys, key levels, it doesn't necessarily feel awful. I mean, you definitely seem to require more healing, especially on your bear, because like you look at details, right, and you look at the
Mm-hmm.
healing done overall, and like it used to be bear is like this much more than your healer, and it's not that case anymore. I mean, they're pretty much on par, if not the healer's beating the bear now. Um, I I don't know. How do you feel about the tank changes?
Yeah, so I kind of freaked out about this when I read it, and I mean, I think for the vast majority of people, they're not going to feel anything. Um,
Hmm.
like I think the only people that are really going to notice this is the people that were playing a lot on beta, and tanking a lot on beta, and then logged in the day after to play on beta, and suddenly are going to feel a lot squishier, and they need help a lot more. I think doing this at the time of an expansion is the perfect time to do it, because your character is already going to naturally kind of feel a little bit weaker comparatively, as you move into progressing through the season one. And so is it going to feel different? Yes, but it's all going to feel different. So uh,
Hmm.
I am still a little bit concerned about their philosophy of this fixing the problem with keys, and what
Yeah.
their stated goals of like, well, damage is too spiky, and it's like, yeah, but when we said that, we weren't talking about the tank. We were talking about everyone else. So like,
Yeah.
if they are thinking that this is going to be the thing that fixes that problem, that's concerning. But ultimately, I don't think this is going to be that big of a deal. I think especially as you gear up, it's going to matter less and less. And yeah, you will probably need a little bit more attention from the healer in this expansion than in the other expansions. But as long as we never get to a place where you have to be kiting, or your healer has to be doing nothing but focusing on you, I think it's fine ultimately. So I've
I
definitely calmed down on this one a lot.
I do have a very specific problem with this change. And you and I have talked about this not during recording sessions, but like this change, um, it only really drives home and reinforces the fact that they want Og in every dungeon, I think.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
honestly.
We talked about Og last week, and then and then this came out, and it's like, oh yeah. Um Now it's like we predicted Og being meta, and it's like, yeah, no, 100% now. 100%.
Yeah. Which I was talking about this with one of our 5-man players the other day. Like, what is our meta 5-man gonna look like going into the War Within, and I'm like, you know what? The only thing I can tell you for certain is Og is going to be in there.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I'm like 99% certain a mage spec is going to be in there. They haven't really lost anything, and one of their specs got a rework, and then fire is just like oodles of AoE damage at this point, and they're not having to play Flame Patch anymore. I mean, Flame Patch at this point is a 2% DPS gain overall, period. And that's if your tank stands in it the whole time. So I don't know, man. I definitely think it's going to be Aug Mage. My prediction is probably Guardian Druid because you need a verse buff, and I don't think any of the other specs are good enough to be brought into keys right now. Maybe Restoration is, but Holy Pally exists right now. Holy Pally
Yeah.
and Shaman are like far and away, like dungeon wise, the best healers. I think Preservation numbers wise is the best healer right now. But you're not going to be bringing Prez and Og.
Poor
So
preservation. Yeah.
yeah. So I think it's going to be Holy Pally. I think it's going to be Guardian Druid. I think it's going to be Og, a Mage spec, and the last DPS slot. I don't know, man. It could be Shadow still. My vote is going out to all the Affliction locks out there. I want Affliction to be the last, but it seems like we're just reinforcing there needing to be an AUG. I mean, everybody I've talked to when they talk about end game keys and end game content in general, I mean, even in Mythic rating, like it feels like everybody is just of the same opinion that you need at least one AUG evoker, and in Mythic's case too, you know.
Yep. I think you are. Yeah, I'm not. I think your prediction as far as the meta comp makes sense to me. But I don't know. I don't. I feel bad for preservation and devastation evokers. I really do. They're in a really good spot right now. But yeah, there's just Og exists, so 5 mans. Even like, I mean, you'll see him in raids and stuff, but not world first. Certainly not. Yeah, just
I definitely think you might see a preservation evoker in World First. I think Devastation is super good, but I think that there are other classes that do what they do but better right now.
I think Prez would have to be like far and away outperforming in healing and damage. And maybe they are. But it would have to be significant. And I guess, I mean, it depends, right? It depends on what buffs you're getting elsewhere, right? Like you can use many times the healer choice in World First is less about the healer's output and more about what buffs can they use the healer role to cover off on that they need.
Well,
So I think it all
yeah.
depends.
In World First rating, I mean, you're always going to have a Holy Paladin and a Disc Priest, right?
Yeah.
Almost
Yeah.
always.
Yep.
You're gonna want Aura Mastery and you're gonna want Barrier.
Yeah.
I mean, Barrier's still broken as all hell. It's still what, a 30% damage reduction.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, I don't know. Tank changes aside, I don't think that they're that deep. I fear that we're gonna have another season of Og. And you know, maybe this is the time to bring it up. We complained about some of the TGP stuff last week, but the finals happened for TGP.
Yeah.
And we actually did see a little bit more shifting up of classes during finals.
I was
We saw people
surprised.
playing warlocks and stuff.
They rolled out they subbed out mage for warlock in a lot of cases. I was really surprised. Happily surprised.
I'm very sad I missed the final day with all the Azure Vaults, but were they still playing mage in Azure Vaults?
I think so. I think the 23s definitely were the god comp. But yeah, it was fun. And your complaint about the required streams, they fix that as well. Is
Yeah.
they just enforce the rules that you're not allowed to hide your buffs and all that, which is good. It didn't matter for the finals, but they said it anyway.
The only thing that they did change, or didn't change, and that they still continued with is, I believe whoever was streaming, they essentially removed their splits from their weak aura for their timer.
Interesting.
So essentially, you couldn't tell if a team had time to key on beta or not yet, or not beta, the tournament realm. So like when they were
Interesting.
going into the 23, even if they had time to 23 before, there wouldn't be splits there for it. The people who weren't streaming had the splits, and the
Hmm.
person who was did not have splits
Oh,
anymore.
interesting.
So, but I don't think that's that big of a problem. I mean,
No,
for the
no.
majority of people who are watching this event, they probably don't even understand what's showing on the timer over there. So,
Yeah. Yeah, the final weekend was fun. The change that you're not eliminating people on Friday and Saturday meant that
I
we
loved
saw
that.
we saw a little bit different strategies, right? That people weren't so obsessed with like getting the third key in. Like they were able to start that third key late, which meant on the first day we saw higher keys than we normally would have. Like they were doing 22 Algathars on the first day, which they wouldn't have done that if there was the chance of being eliminated in the first day. So yeah, I think that's a good change overall. It was fun. I was bummed that Echo lost or won. Sorry, I lost because Echo won. Which nothing against Echo. I just like when other people win. So it was fun to see Mandatory win last season, and Echo's like, no, just kidding. We're back. We win everything
Well,
always.
there was almost another team that came in from behind and took it, right?
Yeah.
Was it
Miscount.
Miscount?
Yeah.
Yeah. Uh, that being said, I do have one more question about the TGP before we kind of jump over to our final topic today.
Hmm.
So I didn't get to watch really the last day. Uh, how when I initially heard this that there was only going to be one key on the final day, I was like, "Oh great, now we're just going to watch people do this one key the entire day, or we're going to watch them do it for 45 minutes, get it to where they can do it, and then we're going to watch them do one of the other keys the entire day." Which is what happened,
Yeah.
but it almost sounds like it was like a good time.
Um, Watching these two teams struggle with a 23 Azure Vault was actually really great. And I didn't honestly, I didn't watch it straight the entire time. It's the weekend. I'm like, I got kids running around and stuff to do, so I was more like tuning in and watching 20 minutes here and there throughout the course of the day. But yeah, it was a lot of fun. It was a lot of fun. So, like this incredibly difficult key, like 20, like we're existing in a world in which you could probably do 21s on everything, and then there's like one or two dungeons you could maybe pull off a 22, and then here comes Azure Vault and it's like 23 fortified. Let's go.
Yeah.
It was cool to see. It was like like just the timer. It was one of those ones where yes, it was the amount of damage, but like the timer mattered too. Like it's like you had to pull. I think they basically pulled it in like 4 pulls.
Hmm.
Which is just absolutely insane. It was a lot of fun to watch. So I think the 3-2-1 works. I think that change was good.
Yeah, I am excited. I almost wonder if they should just do 2-2-2. But that might be too few dungeons for how much time they have each day.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, no, I'm excited. TGP this season was extremely good in my opinion. I like the new format of like not eliminating people on the grand finals day. It allowed for miscount to come back.
Yeah,
Um, so like, here's the thing: miscount would have been eliminated day
two.
one,
I think day
two,
two. Yeah,
and they were like one of the best performing teams in Group B.
yeah,
Like this format allowed for them to stay in the tournament and come back and potentially almost win or at least cause timers to be the tiebreaker, right?
mm-hmm. Yeah,
So I don't know, man. I hope that they continue with these changes going forward. I think it was really good for TGP, and I'm hopeful that for the MDI or whatever, we can start to see some things that are somewhat similar. I think the MDI is a lot more solidified as a format, though.
yeah, yeah,
And it's honestly, viewing wise, a lot better because you have two teams going head to head and it isn't 6 teams all at the same time doing the same thing.
yeah. I'm
Um,
really excited for the MDI, um, in which Echo wins because they got good RNG luck on the finding the assassins mode in the City of Threads. It's gonna be great.
I hope that the RNG stuff goes away. Why was there RNG for the Chromie role play in Dawn of the Infinites. Like,
Nobody
what was
knows.
that? Like 30 seconds of RNG.
It's for fun. You got to keep you on your toes, you know.
Anyways, the final thing I wanted to talk about, and I think that this is probably the single most thing that has me a little bit sad going into the War Within, is we got a content release schedule for season 1 of the War Within. And the thing that stuck out to me the most is from release until Mythic Plus comes out, we are going to have a month essentially.
3
And
weeks and a little bit. It's a month from, or it's 3 weeks from full release. But if you're doing early access, it ends up being just shy of a month.
mhm, which is super sad for me because, like, obviously I'm subjecting myself to this by playing during early access, but also, I don't know, man. Keys are like the most fun content for me in this game, and it's kind of sad that we're gonna wait so long for it. Uh, it just it's never been this long before, right? It's normally 2 weeks.
It's normally 2 weeks. Like even in Shadowlands when they did the heroic week, which is the reason why it's 3 weeks, is because they brought back the concept of heroic week, which I think was a good choice. For Race to World First, it's a good choice because the first few days of the race without a heroic week are just the most mind-numbingly awful, boring things ever. Um, Ultimately, I think having a week between heroic mode and mythic and raid is good. But yeah, they used to in the heroic week in like Shadowlands, you were just capped on how high a keys you could go, right? Like,
Hmm.
or like they just capped that. Um,
Rewards stopped at 10 or
yeah,
whatever.
yeah. And why didn't why didn't they just do that? Why didn't they just do that? Like, I think the logic behind this, as I understand it, is with the shift to heroic being the new M0, M0 being the new plus 10, and plus 10 essentially being at 20. The logic was, well, we're going to unlock mythic zeros, and we would have capped it at 10 before. And so this is essentially the same thing, because you're not going to have mythic plus, no, but mythic zero is the new plus 10, so you're going to have the same thing essentially. But that's not really true for a couple reasons. The first of which is those are still have lockouts, and I know it's a daily lockout now, but they still have lockouts. They're not keys, they're different than keys. There's
Hmm.
even it's the same dungeon with the same mechanics, it's still not like keys are a very distinct thing that I quite enjoy. I like the timer, I like that whole aspect of it. And then they nerfed the Mythic Plus gear relative to the other gear. Is the other thing, is like they made it worse. It right now in season 4, M0 is equivalent to normal raid gear. In the War Within, M0 will be equivalent to LFR raid gear. So they've just nerfed it. So there's kind of not really a reason to waste a lot of your time in M0 anymore, um, which is just a bummer.
Yeah. Yeah. And the daily lockout thing, do you think that's a good thing? Because I think that what that's incentivizing is now you do a world tour daily.
I think that's probably too much to ask for a lot of people, but like, you don't actually have to do that, right? Like,
Yeah.
nobody has to do that. Like, even if you do it, and even if you're in full, if like you go into the M plus season in like full M0 gear, you're gonna replace a lot of that so quickly that it's just for the min maxer degens like us that want to do that. But
I think the biggest problem I have with it is not that it's requiring us to do a world tour, but that the world tour is what we're going to have to do for, like, that's going to be our only avenue. So, like, if there is a trinket in a dungeon that I want, I can't just target that dungeon for a week.
yeah, true.
Like, I have to do one run a day. So, I I mean,
Yeah.
I'm not thrilled about it, and I think the biggest thing that I'm having an issue with is that it's going to be a month before we can really do our 5-man content, and it's also going to be a month before we can do mythic rating. Like, we're going to be able to do heroic rating after 3 weeks if you have early access, 2 weeks if you don't. Um, and I think that that's good, but like, they're you only raid 2 nights a week on average. There's going to be a lot of dead time for the very beginning of this game, and I think that that's the most pivotal moment for momentum
It's the
for
most exciting
players.
time. You're excited. The
Yeah.
game's new. It's out. Mythic Plus is one of the pillars of the game. We have 3 endgame pillars now. Do we have delves? Hooray! We have raid and we have Mythic Plus, and
I think PvPers have an issue with your statement there.
I don't care about them. So, like, did you just say arbitrarily that one of the pillars has just been deactivated and you cannot do not approach pillar? Like, you take all your excitement and your joy about new dungeons and new classes and during hero talents and pushing myself and yeah, you just don't get to do it for an arbitrary amount of time. And no, I do not think M0 is a fair equivalent, even though it is harder than it has been in previous expansions. I don't think it's the same thing at all. So it's disappointing. I would rather see them just do what they did before, which was that release at Mythic Plus that heroic week, but just cap it. Cap it at, I guess, would it be like a +5? I don't know. Just make a decision and cap it on something. Let people run keys. People like doing keys. People would do keys even if they stopped getting rewards, because they do that already. There are people that do a whole bunch of keys after they've stopped getting rewards. People just want to play the game, especially when the dungeons are new. We want to learn the dungeons. We want to get to do them over. Like, M0 and Mythic Plus are still different in that there are different mechanics on some bosses. And of course, the timer changes everything anyway. And people want to practice that. They want to practice the dungeons on the timer. They want to practice the things they're going to be doing. And just saying you're not going to be able to do that, but don't worry, you can do M0. I don't like it.
Yeah. Yeah. Again, I'm not thrilled, and I don't know really what to do for that month. So I think the majority of the thing that we're going to try and do is we're going to do like Mythic Zeros when they open. We're going to do some heroics. Um, but like we can't really do alts because the second that Mythic Plus opens, then you're having to do +9s for alts. And it's like, well, why did I even spend the time on the alt at that point?
Yeah, what I'm going to do is I'm going to level up the alts that I know I'm never going to have time to play. That's what's going to happen.
Yeah. So I don't know. And maybe delves are going to be amazing and I'm going to have nothing to worry about. And I'm just going to do delves for 2 weeks. I don't know. You know,
Just
like
gonna
I haven't really interacted with the system too much as far as delves are concerned. But yeah, I think that it's definitely going to be odd. And I'm hopeful that it doesn't take the wind out of the sails for season 1.
I hope
Yeah.
so. You know, the cynic in me says they gave themselves an extra week to get the dungeons tuned because they are hopelessly behind on dungeon tuning, and that's why they've done it.
Yeah, I think the biggest concern I have is with us trying to recruit people for raiding. If this kind of kills some of the player base, because I mean, a month is a long time, man. Like 3 weeks after the expansion releases, like people have already kind of made up their mind on how they feel about it,
Yeah. Oh yeah.
and they're not even getting to interact with some of it. So,
Mm-hmm.
uh, I worry that it's gonna take a lot of the wind out of the sails for the expansion launch. Like that's my
Yeah.
biggest concern. Like I'm gonna keep playing the game, and after 4 weeks, this isn't gonna affect me anymore, and I'm gonna carry on like normal. But that isn't the case for everybody.
Yeah. 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 I'm just imagining like you took off work the week after the expansion came out because you're like, I'm gonna have so much to do. No, you're not. No, you're not. I mean, like we kind of saw it in Dragonflight a little bit that like the degen shit people got up to in the first week of Dragonflight of just like farming like Rathion rep and just like for little tiny upgrades that they were going to replace immediately, but it's just because people were excited to play the game, so they're going to do
Yeah.
like the game's new and I want to play the game, and so yeah, I'm going to do this degen shit just because it's the only thing to do in the game right now. So yeah, I mean, I don't know. I understand the rolling things out to not like overwhelm people with all the stuff you're expected to do, and you're going to feel like you're behind right away if you don't have time to do it all from day one. I get that, but this is too much.
Yeah, I hope that at least during this time, maybe we spend some time on some of the bug fixes or something like that, because I am very confused on why some of these haven't been fixed yet. and we're getting to the point where I think a lot of these are not going to be fixed when we get to live. Like the arcane mage one that's been in there for a while now, and I hope that gets fixed. There's a bug where clear casting for arcane is happening 2 times more often than it should be on everything but arcane barrage. I hope. I'm fine with it not getting fixed because it makes the gameplay loop a lot more fun, but it should get fixed. Like these things are bugs,
Yeah.
and I hope that we are getting to a situation to where we can actually fix some of these. Hell, right now, if you play Frost and you are a Frostfire mage, you don't get Frostfire Bolt. Like it just doesn't give it to you. It gives it to fire, but it doesn't give it to Frost. So
I was listening to Max from Liquid talk about this earlier last week, and the thing he said, and I don't have a lot of visibility into this because I just haven't been doing that much testing of things on beta, but they have never at this point in the pre-expansion stuff known less about what their final comp's going to be in the raid, because so much stuff is just not tuned and not working correctly, and like it just like this thing that most of the players probably wouldn't notice, only the bleeding edge players will notice because they're needing to do all this stuff well in advance. But the fact that like certainly they have time to get it all wrapped up and together by launch, they do, but like just that he made that comment that it's never been this bad this close to release in his memory. That's a little concerning.
It's very concerning. And then the other thing is like you and I are running a guild, and we have people who are like still not sure what to play, and like
Yeah.
part of that is just because like everybody wants to do this thing where they want to fill in the gaps or they don't want to play something else somebody else is playing. But the other part of it is like, are these classes in their final state? Like,
Yeah.
not even damage wise. So I think gameplay wise, for a lot of them, yes. Maybe Shaman's still getting a few changes, but like the bugs change everything, right? Like having your final hero talent on arcane changes stuff. Like it changes you from being this class that like ramps and gets extremely strong at the end of a boss fight in a mythic boss to you're just doing consistent like little bursts of damage, and like that completely changes kind of the damage profile and the not really the play style because all of it's passive kind of anyway from just doing your rotation correctly. But yeah, it's definitely weird, and I mean,
Yeah.
I hope that this stuff gets figured out because people are needing to make a decision on what they're going to play soon, very soon. I mean, the expansion releases in a month.
Yep. Yeah, it's crazy. It's crazy how close we are. And yeah. I mean, I have faith. I have faith that they'll get this in a good enough shape, at least by the time Mythic Plus starts. They've given themselves an extra week. I think we'll go into the season with them needing to make pretty consistent tuning adjustments to both dungeons and classes. But the encouraging thing is I think Dragonflight showed that at least in the first couple months of a new expansion, they are incredibly responsive in those months that they
Yeah.
are making changes daily. Like they see a problem, they fix it, both in dungeon tuning and in class tuning. It's a little frustrating to play in those months because it just feels like you never know. Like I struggled with this key this week and I got it next week. Is that because they nerfed it or I got better? Or like it just it feels weird to be in a world this tumultuous. But it's also good that they're grabbing stuff quickly and fast. I do wish they were able to do this in the testing phase before we get to release, but that's the nature of the beast sometimes. So
I do have one concern, and it's the fact that Outlaw Rogue has been bugged since the alpha of Dragonflight, and they still have the current bug in the retail version of the game. So I'm a bit worried about some of the class bugs not being addressed. And to the point of that, like there is a reason I don't play Windwalker Monk anymore. Like, that class is built on abusing some of the bugs that were never solved for 2 years, and then they come out of nowhere and they solve a bug, and it's not a bug fix anymore. Like, you are just straight up nerfing the class. Like, people
Yeah.
have learned how to play around this. So
Yeah.
and with Storm, Earth, and Fire, I mean, you're just bound to have bugs. Like, that ability in its very nature is just very buggy. So
Yeah.
yeah, it's concerning, to say the least. And I hope, one more kind of thing that I wanted to ask about is, for tuning wise, I think everything I have played so far feels like the gameplay has been it's been nailed. I mean, I feel like the only things that have really lost, in my opinion, are like Fury Warrior, but I don't think that they lost because of the new expansion. They lost because they still have 5 cooldowns, and they had that in Dragonflight.
Mm-hmm.
So I think gameplay wise, we're in a really good spot. We just need to figure out tuning, and we need to fix bugs. You know?
Yeah, I mean, for the classes that were okay or got reworks during Dragonflight, they're even the hero talents, I don't think fundamentally change their gameplay too dramatically. So those are still in pretty good places. I mean, I'll talk about Bear again. I feel like I talk about Bear too much, but Bear really didn't get any changes in the beta cycle at all. Like, Bear essentially plays the exact same way. Now, it is different that, you will take a little bit different talents when you have the Illumin tree versus the other one, but essentially the class plays like it did, and it plays well. And so they had that advantage. They have shown they're doing pretty good job with these reworks. When they target a class for a rework, they do a pretty good job from a design perspective and a tuning perspective. I mean, I think they're always a little bit overtuned, but who cares about that? That's fun.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, I think they're doing a good job. I think the thing is, can they keep it up? Because what we see over the course of an expansion cycle is their ability to respond and fix problems is very, very good at the beginning and drops off pretty precipitously as the life cycle of the expansion goes on. And I wish
Yeah.
there was a way that they could keep that up. Maybe not to like the hypercare post launch period, because that's of course not sustainable, but like at a decent clip going into later patches. I wish they were.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I do have one final question for you, Scott.
7.
Is completely irrelevant to almost anything we've talked about today. But if you could bring one dungeon back for Mythic Plus dungeon, what would you bring back?
Okay, well, this is tough because I only played since Shadowlands in the Mythic
Yeah.
Plus world. So I really only have 2 expansions and then just the random other dungeons that they've rolled into them again.
Yeah, but I mean any dungeon. I mean, we're bringing back Kata dungeons now.
So like just what
We have Grim
out of
Recall.
any
Yeah.
dungeon that's ever existed in World of Warcraft?
Any dungeon ever.
Oh boy.
I don't even know that I have an answer for this. I'm
No,
gonna
I
be
need to.
honest with
Can I
you.
look up a list of dungeons?
Yeah. Go
List
for it.
of WoW dungeons.
Because I'm going to be honest with you. So, like, when this started, the reason I'm asking this is when this started and we got to vote, right? Like, Grimrail was the one that got voted in. And I was like, why did we even let the community vote? Like, this dungeon sucked so bad. And now it's coming into Mythic Plus, and I'm going to be forced to interact with this. And honestly, it became one of my favorite dungeons for the season.
Yeah,
It
it
was
was
one of
actually
the
really
easier
good. Yeah.
dungeons, and it actually was pretty rewarding and fun when done correctly. So I pose this question because I'm curious, because I think the mop dungeon that came back, Temple of the Jade Serpent, everybody was excited for, and then it frankly, it fucking sucked.
It was doo-doo. It was real bad. And then they've like the Kata dungeon was pretty awful.
Yeah, Throne.
Throne. Wait.
Well,
No,
both
no.
Kata dungeons.
I mean, Throne was rough. I thought Vortex Pinnacle was like way worse than Throne.
Okay.
I thought Vortex Pinnacle was like one of the worst, the worst Mythic Plus dungeons I've ever done. I hated that place so much. So like But then like Grimbatol is in this one, and I haven't played it enough to have like a definitive opinion on it. But it seems like they just completely redid the entire dungeon. Like it's just, I mean, same boss models, but essentially just entirely redone. And so like
They have
the
somewhat of the same premise, but
yeah,
that's about
yeah. I
it.
mean, but like the answer to this question is like what is essentially like what dungeon would I like to see get a facelift too, right? Because like
Sure.
um, let's see here. I mean, so the problem with is like I immediately go to some of the old dungeons, and then I like immediately in my head like think of all the problems with that. Like the Dead Mines has been the classic answer, but like that's such a long dungeon, and
Oh
like
yeah, and after doing it in Kata, you just like it's rough.
no thank you. Yeah. So and then like some of the Burning Crusade dungeons are just I'm scrolling through this list and I saw like Magister's Terrace and I was like, oh, that might be fun. But like, there's so much fucking trash in that place.
Oh, you know
So,
what dungeon I think would go hard? Actually, I think this might be my answer. You know what dungeon would go hard as a Mythic Plus? It'd be a
hmm.
quick key, but man, it'd be so good. Fucking Hellfire Ramparts. Give me Ramparts Mythic Plus. Dude, that dungeon would be sick.
I wonder if they'd go back that far because they originally said they weren't going to go past Mop, and then they kind of changed their minds and did the Kata dungeons. And I think they basically when they do this, they say to themselves that we're basically going to design a new dungeon from the ground up.
Yeah.
Um, so I don't know. I don't know. I'm
You
not
gotta have
answering
one.
your
You don't have a
question.
favorite dungeon
Yeah.
ever?
I mean, not really. I'm looking at this list and nothing's like, oh hell yeah, I loved this place. I have super fond memories of this place. Some of these dungeons I've just done so many times that it's just like I think some of the Wrath ones might work well for this. Like I think like Drakthron Keep might work really well for this. Um
I think Utgard Keep and Utgard Pinnacle would make okay
yeah,
keys.
yeah. Halls of Lightning, not Halls of Stone because of the fucking bullshit RP event, but like Halls of Lightning is a fun dungeon and I could see
Mhm.
that working as a Mythic Plus. Yeah, something like that.
All right,
I
all
don't know.
right. So
I feel like some of the mop ones are really good too. I'm just kind of gun shy with how bad Jade Serpent was.
yeah, so the problem that I would have with the mop dungeons is we did them in challenge mode already.
I
So
didn't.
it's almost like, do we want to do the challenge mode version of the dungeon again, or do we want to go the Jade Serpent route where we completely change how the first boss kind of interacts, and we change where the mobs are placed before the
Hmm.
final boss, and make the most abysmal final boss room that's ever existed ever.
Yeah. How do you feel about them already bringing back Shadowlands dungeons? Has it been enough time? Is it too soon?
So I don't know. Maybe I'm weird. I actually like Miss Eterna Scythe a lot, so I'm not upset about that. Necrotic Wake, I like that dungeon too. So the two that they're bringing back, I think, are fine. Um, I think I'd be a lot more upset if they brought back like Sanguine Depths.
I love
Not
Sanguine
because
Depths. I
I
love
don't
that
think
dungeon.
Sanguine Depths is a bad dungeon. I just really didn't like that dungeon. I don't know. I felt like it was on a tier of its own in far of difficulty compared to the other dungeons. So maybe that's why I'm disliking it so much. But I think the only dungeon from Shadowlands that they would bring back and I would be more happy about is Halls. Dude,
Yeah,
I
yeah.
fucking loved Halls.
I was thinking that too. Yeah.
but
I did not like Necrotic Wake my problem with Necrotic Wake is how much time you spend in that one fucking
oh, the
ziggurat.
Ziggurat,
I
yeah.
hate how much of the dungeon you spend in that place. I hate it. Um Everything else in that dungeon I don't mind.
We
I
also ran into this the other day. The final boss in that dungeon with Augevoker.
yeah, how you going to handle that one, Blizzard? What are you going to do there? What are you going to do?
Yeah, yeah.
Nothing? Oh, okay. Nothing? Cool.
I don't know what they're gonna do.
This is like
We had an Og that
remember
couldn't kill the thing, so
remember when the Og if the Og didn't get targeted by the roots in the what's it called? You were just fucked because
yeah.
the Og couldn't kill the roots in time. Yeah, this is great. This is great.
Yeah, so I don't know. I'm a bit worried about that. I'm happy to see some of the good Shadowlands dungeons come back. It might be too soon for them, though. I mean, maybe we could go another expansion before we brought them back, because that's saying, we go into the next expansion and we're already going to see Dragonflight dungeons. And
Yeah, that's true. Imagine Midnight or running fucking Neltherus again. Kill me.
yeah, or we could be in Midnight and run an Algathar and be happy.
They're true. I would always love to do an Algathar. Yeah.
But all right, well, I do think we're running a little low on time, so we can go ahead and wrap this one up here. I think the question that I have for this week, honestly, it's the same question I asked Scott. If you could bring back any dungeon in WoW's history as a Mythic Plus dungeon, one that's been a Mythic Plus before, one that they might have to rework, any dungeon, what would it be? And that's my question for you guys. So, as always, you can contact us over at yellingintothevoidwow@gmail.com. Our YouTube is at yellingintothevoidwow, and Twitter is into the void wow.
If you're not already subscribed to this podcast, you should do so. We are on iTunes, Spotify, YouTube, and as Tevin already said, and anywhere else you can find podcasts. This is an exciting time. We're going to be here for all of it, so please follow along and get excited, folks. We're doing it. We're a month out. It's gonna be. I'm really. Contrary to the last hour and a half, I'm very excited about this game and what this next expansion is going to be. I'm pretty pumped about it.
Yeah, I'm definitely pumped for the War Within. I think hero talents are amazing, and I think that as far as design wise, it can only go up from here.
Yep.
The last thing that we have here is please consider reviewing and rating us on Apple Podcasts, as well as commenting, liking the video on YouTube. All of that helps us create more content and really start to ramp up as the expansion's kicking off here. We love to come out with all of this new stuff, and I think that in this month leading up to the expansion and the month probably after the expansion, there's going to be a lot of it. So if you want to keep hearing us yap about these things, please definitely make sure to review, rate, like, comment, subscribe, all of the jazz for all of the socials. So yeah, I appreciate it, guys. But until next week, we'll just be over here yelling into the void.